if I look from the scientific point of view, our galaxy is one of billions of galaxies, and our star is one of the billions of stars, and we are on one small planet, really insignificant in the natural scientific universe. And to be honest, I must accept that that's not a very nice thing to accept emotionally, but that's the conclusion I have been coming to from my studies, my understanding, my rationality. So in the grand, big scheme of the universe, there is no significant purpose for us or me as an individual. So what do I have instead? Instead, I think me and other atheists and humanists, we build our purpose from small things, in our life, like human-sized things. Yeah. So they are not universe-sized things, but they might be, helping our friends, or taking care of our kids, or researching some scientific, theories, or being creative, producing some art that might even span, to the future generations. Thinking about the future generations, how they might be based on what we have now, trying to make a better world through politics, and grassroots activities. So those are the kind of things that we can find, at least try to find purpose on individual level. And I think they can be valid sources of purpose when we say that, today's teenagers are depressed, because they don't have purpose. I think the problem is that, such teenagers, perhaps they are just focusing on posting, lipstick pictures to Instagram, and that level of thing. And that can be a very unhealthy thing, for your meaning of life. But still, you can find better meanings of life from these kind of bigger things than lipstick, but still smaller things than universe.
I wouldn't be so rushed with the youngers, because I've done many stupid things in my time. But this is the problem of spiritual needs. If the young people are not given decent options, about how to satisfy the spiritual needs, then they might end up doing silly things.
Yeah, when you're saying we can do things for better, for the better ends, for helping people further down, using the term better, one can either say from a scientific standpoint, that's just what my values happen to be. But for me to be motivated to help the next generation that will be around when I'm not here, I have to believe that actually is better. So how is it that I support this idea actually is better from the scientific standpoint? There is no better. And if you don't think there is really any better, then why even say, well, we want truth to be victorious? Why should I care about truth being victorious when there's no value in it? What does that matter to me? It doesn't really matter. So I think people actually, atheists, bring in belief in better. They use better rather than right and wrong. But better still assumes not just better from my perspective, but actually better. And if they don't actually believe it's better, it's not going to give them satisfaction in what they're doing. And I think it's so important for our own personal happiness that we believe our life is for the better, for the good. But you have to believe there is a good out there, and science doesn't tell us there's any good out there.
Follow up on that.
And I need to respond at some point.
Yes, I really appreciate your poetic mention that humans are just very well-organized dust on a dusty planet in the middle of nowhere. But then why should we then care about human rights at all? Why prefer one arrangement of atoms over another arrangement of atoms? I mean, everything's just going to the heat death of the universe in any way. And if you look at history, the biggest perpetrators of human rights violations, numbers-wise, were atheistic regimes. So I'm referring to communist China and Russia. So my question is, why should we care? Because your inner purpose, you're talking about, you can find joy in making the world a better place. What is better? It's just subjective. Like, why should, maybe my better is contrary to someone else's better. And why, like, that's the thing you have in Finland which is very interesting. Like, you're just respecting other people's opinions. But, so, yeah, that's my question.
But I have to challenge. Empirical evidence shows that actually religious regimes are the most dangerous for human rights, except human rights were invented or established in a time where there was no, luckily, many religious regimes. But the Holy Mother Church was burning people and death penalty until the 19th century.
At the same number.
Well, the historical records.
There's zeros
You know, the Crusades were not invented by atheists. I mean, I have to challenge that. But I think the empirical truth of your claim doesn't change the importance of the questions. Yeah. So I think we don't want to deal with that. And this is something that you have to answer. I think you...
Yeah. So when I was teenager and there was this Nuorten Posti in the Helsingin Sanomat, like a youngsters place, and there were many these kind of born-again Christian teenagers saying how Jesus is lovely and so on, and then I wrote there some atheistic, rant, and then somebody replied to me there, some other teenager saying, "You atheists, because you think everything comes down to atoms. So for you atheists, it doesn't matter if you are kicking on the street stones or old ladies, it's the same, because in both cases, atoms are just moving location in coordinates." Okay, what we call that in philosophy is a straw man, okay? Straw man means you are creating an invalid version of your opponent.
A false representation.
False representation of your opponent in order to strike it down. So that's a straw man. Why is it straw man? Because 99% of humans actually can agree that kicking stones is better than kicking the old ladies. There is no real contradiction about that if you ask our opinion. Yeah. If not for anything else, is that that's what our heart and feelings tell us.
Why should we trust it?
Well, because science doesn't tell us whether it's better or not, so we don't trust science. We trust our heart in that case. That's true, but that can happen with religions as well. If I say, okay, I take religion as my standard, who am I kicking? How about if your religion says, go and fly that jet plane against those towers? Yes, let's do that because my religion says that. So religion is not answering that. If somebody is using religion to override their heart is saying, I shouldn't kill those people, but the religion says, yes, you should. That's a bad, or other way around. So religion will not solve that problem. You need to trust your heart anyway, whether it's right or wrong. That's what I claim.
Let's, next, please. You want to say something, right?
Yeah. Atheism has been around in a major way only for the last 100 years or so, okay? So we ask what has come from atheistic regimes, people who are atheistic. You can't compare the Middle Ages because after all, before that, everything was religious. And the fact of the matter is that people will do terrible things out of any strong ideology, whether it be atheism or Christian belief. At the same time, they'll be strongly motivated to do things which were sacrificial and which they would never have thought of before. And when atheists say we need to get rid of religious beliefs, if you get rid of all ideology, then in fact you're not motivation to do what's good. What you need to do is say the problem is not the strength of beliefs, but rather what lies behind them. So you need to go look at Jesus, look at the Christian faith, what's really there. When the Pope who sent off the first Crusaders to liberate Jerusalem, the church historian said it was the first time he knew of any church leader who actually told Christians that God will bless you for killing non-Christians. That tells you how so contrary that is to the fundamental Christian faith and to what Jesus taught. So the problem is not that people do terrible things in the name of religion, people do terrible things in the name of atheism, people have strong beliefs, and that's a big motivator. Don't take away all motivations, but rather get down to what their fundamentals are, are their fundamentals things which will actually help other people and guide other people. You go to Jesus and you get that. You go to atheism and you get a blank. You might choose to care for other people, you might not. Atheism doesn't answer that question.
It took 1,000 years for Christians to use theological motivation for violence, 1,000 years. And anyone who would say that Christianity in particular, if you zoom in on religions, on Christianity, because I think there are religions who say that violence can be God ordained, I would just disagree with them. But Jesus in particular said, if you live by the sword, you die by the sword. When Peter wanted to cut off the Roman's ear. So Christianity does not advocate for violence. Christians have, against their scriptures, advocated for violence. That's just my opinion as a strong religious person.
And I agree, but you would be excommunicated if you were talking about 600 years ago.